Hey, it's Juck. Today, Ohio State is in better position than Georgia to win a national championship, and Julian Sayin is doing something I've never heard of in spring practice. Maybe you have. I don't know. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome in. Hey, it's Monday. Let's get it. A lot to go over today. So one of the things that really bothered me in the offseason was the consistent talk about Ohio State trying to buy a national championship. It really grated on me. There were just so many schools like Ole Miss and A&M and Louisville and just a whole slew of schools that brought in 25 transfer guys, Colorado. And it was just ridiculous that Ohio State was the one getting saddled with this. But one of the teams that had a very similar transfer portal class to Ohio State was Georgia, who is coincidentally, the main obstacle, in my opinion, to Ohio State winning a national championship next year. Not Michigan or not Oregon or Texas or Alabama. It's Georgia. And people think I'm overestimating where the Buckeyes currently stand in the landscape of college football, and I don't think I am. And we'll talk about it. But because I feel that way, I keep a really close eye on what goes on in Georgia. And their portal class was fantastic. They went about it the same exact way, and they addressed wide receiver. 3 wide receivers they brought in. One's a really talented prospect that's 6'4". One was like the number 2 wide receiver in the portal, and another one was just excellent, game ready. They brought in a tight end, kind of in the Brock Bowers mold. Nobody's going to be Brock Bowers, but all Pac-12 kid from Stanford, runs the ball from the tight end spot, averaged more than 10 yards a rush at Stanford, and really an excellent tight end. They got a safety from Alabama, and the prize of their recruiting portal class was Trevor Etienne. So younger brother Travis Etienne, running back from Florida, 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns on a really bad Florida team. The kid's a stud, and he is slated to be Georgia's number 1 running back. Well, Trevor trashed Florida on his way out the door, which is there was no reason to. He didn't have a reason he was mad, just that they sucked. And he went to them knowing they had a new coach in Billy Napier, and they were probably not going to be very good, or he should have. But poor Billy Napier, man. The guy's a really nice guy, clearly in over his head. I don't think he's going to survive past this year. And talk about deflating. The schedule they got is absolutely brutal. One of the most difficult second halves of a schedule I've ever seen in my life. Maybe it's probably like top 2 hardest schedules I've ever seen. I might as well put it up here. But I was just thinking earlier today when this schedule came out, when they released the schedules, and Billy Napier, knowing how he stands right now and how tenuous his job security is, and then he sees this schedule. I mean, talk about deflating, man. The poor guy. Anyway, Trevor just wanted to talk crap about them on the way out the door. And the way people leave situations kind of speaks to me about their character. So I don't really like the kid. I just didn't like that he trashed him like that. Anyway, Trevor just joined a long list of recent issues when it comes to Georgia Bulldogs behind the wheel of a car when he copped himself a DUI at 4 a.m. over the weekend. Of course, Georgia in 2023 had the horrific accident where a recruiting staffer and a player died racing Jalen Carter in a drag race going over 100 miles an hour. Obviously, tragic incident. But it wasn't just that. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution did a deep dive on all the issues that they had there with driving, and there was something like 300 citations that were handed out to Georgia players since Kirby Smart has been there. It's really strange that this one school has all these issues with driving. So Georgia took it seriously, and they went about, responsibility, education for the kids. And anyway, Trevor comes in, immediately gets himself a DUI. It's just reckless. He got reckless driving as well and failure to maintain his lane. But just like Greg Scruggs at Michigan, I've got nothing good to say about someone who gets a DUI this day and age when ride sharing is so unbelievably easy. And people die every day of drunk driving. It's just inexcusable to me. But Sharon Moore resigned Greg Scruggs. I'll be interested to see what happens with Trevor Etienne, because this incredibly long list of Georgia players having these issues with driving, I just don't understand how a guy who's, a noted disciplinarian like Kirby Smart, I mean, this is a tough guy coach. This is not a soft coach. How he keeps having these issues, it's really puzzling to me. But on the field, the Dogs are currently the king. So I compare Ohio State to them with, they're kind of the measuring stick for me. The programs are built the same way. They follow the same philosophies. I think Ohio State as a program is in the same position as Georgia's in right now. And Georgia, of course, has the edge with the experienced quarterback in Carson Beck, who could be the best quarterback in the country. Some people think so. I think he's the best quarterback coming back that you can say, you can identify as the best quarterback. I don't think that's how it's going to end up. But that's currently the only difference between these two teams. And it's the only difference that makes them, Georgia, the odds-on favorite over Ohio State to win the national championship. Ohio State is number 2 in the odds in every book in Vegas. But I believe Ohio State has the edge. And I believe they have more areas on the Ohio State team where they are superior to Georgia. And I think Ohio State is going to be the odds-on favorite in my book to win the national championship. And I put a lot of money on that. But I think Will Howard is not a great quarterback. But I think that there is going to be an offense that's going to be tailored to him when he wins the job. And I think he's going to win the job. That's going to be good enough and tailored to his strength, and the offense is going to be very good with him. I think it's going to hum. But I was doing a hypothetical the other day, and I was just pretending, and just bear with me here through this. So just pretend for a second that the Buckeyes got those few more yards against Georgia, and that field goal was a little more makeable, and they make the field goal, and I think everybody agrees if they make that field goal, they go on to beat TCU, and then they're the national championship. It's a stretch hypothetical, but just bear with me. So that means that Ohio State and Ryan Day have won a more recent national championship than Georgia, and Georgia has won national championship, and Ohio State has won national championship recently. So now look at these two programs side by side, exactly as they stand right now. And if we're looking at them right now as they stand, Ohio State has the edge. The only reason Georgia is being given the benefit of the doubt now is because they've done it and Ohio State hasn't. But this Georgia team is not that Georgia team, and it's not the Georgia, it sure as heck isn't the Georgia team the year before that. So they're only getting the benefit of the doubt because Kirby has been there and done that, and Kirby is being kind of viewed as potentially this next kind of Saban-esque coach. But he's not. There's only one Saban. He's a beatable coach, and that's a beatable program. And the Buckeyes didn't beat them, but we all saw they were capable of doing so. I don't think anybody came out of that game, even Ohio State haters, thinking that Ohio State wasn't capable of beating them.
And you already know Ohio State's not winning a natty unless they somehow get all the way through the playoffs without having to play an SEC team. Ohio State can't beat an SEC team if their life depended on it.
And Kirby knows that too because Kirby said so. Now, Ryan Day has certainly frustrated us in big games. He doesn't have a great record in big games, but he's not been a total failure in big games. He's now done everything that he can to optimize his personal performance as a coach in those big games. It's his fault that he didn't do that before, but he's done it now. And as we look at these two programs now, the Ohio State program is in better shape. I really believe that. The staff at Ohio State is the most elite staff in the country. The current talent on the team, with all the seniors staying, it's the most elite talent in the country. And the odds, to me, are backwards. I think Ohio State is the championship favorite this year. And those couple of yards and that field goal don't change the way these two teams currently stand. So that didn't happen. They didn't get the couple yards. They didn't make that field goal. And that is the reason that people look at these two programs differently right now. I don't choose to look at it like that because the outcome of that game didn't change the way these two teams are currently constructed and the momentum that these two teams currently possess. Ohio State, to me, is the leader in the pack, the odds-on favorite to win the national championship, and I believe they will.
For the SEC is just Ohio State kryptonite for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe you can figure it out. Nobody at Ohio State's been able to figure it out for the last 100 years.
But what do I know? Anyway, the Bucks had a spring practice scrimmage on Saturday, right? We're all hearing all of a sudden leaks out of that practice coming out from different sources here, different Buckeye sources there, and everybody's saying the same thing. Number one, the linebackers are looking really good. Number two, Jeremiah Smith, of course, is looking good. But the most interesting thing we're hearing is how amazing Julian Sayin is looking, how fast he's processing information both on the field and off the field, how great he looks throwing into tight windows against this incredibly talented secondary, how he may be competing for the backup job because they're expecting somebody's going to transfer after the starting quarterback gets named. I heard 2 weeks ago that he was already, getting close to passing Lincoln on the depth chart. And it's becoming very apparent that this kid, without a doubt, is the real deal. The only concern is his size. And like I've been saying since the first time we talked about him, if he wasn't the size he is, he would have been way more nationally known than even Dylan Raiola was, because he's that special. There's no doubt about it anymore. It's just so incredibly abnormal to hear this about a freshman quarterback coming out of spring camp, his first couple of weeks here. It's so abnormal. There's just zero chance that this is all smoke, right? It can't all be smoke. Because keep in mind, people were really rooting for Air to be this guy that was getting all these things coming out being said about him. And if you look at the comments section, anywhere that you're seeing these shows where they're, the folks that have sources inside the Woody that are talking about, what's coming out, it's all, why aren't you guys talking about Aaron Nolan? What about Aaron Nolan? Why aren't we getting an Aaron Nolan update? And I don't like to make people angry. And when I talk about quarterbacks, somebody gets really angry at me. It happens every time because everybody has kind of latched on to one of these guys. And there's a lot of them to latch on to, right? So we're never all going to agree. I love Devin Brown because Devin Brown's a Buckeye. Devin Brown chose us, and Devin Brown chose to stay with us. And that I respect. And he's a heck of a leader. But I think Will Howard is going to beat him out for the job because I think Will Howard is the guy that the staff wants to beat him out for the job. And sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I love Aaron Nolan because Aaron Nolan chose us. And a lot of people love Aaron Nolan because Nolan had a lot of hype and Nolan's really good. And he had an amazing record-setting junior year in a very high level of football, one of the hardest divisions in the country. He put up amazing stats in high school. He was talked about last year as, we don't need to worry about this with McCord and Devin Brown because the hero's coming next season, and the hero's name is Aaron Nolan. And that's a catchy name. And there was a lot of hype, and I heard a whole lot of that last year. But there's a reason that after Dylan Raiola decommitted, Ryan Day went to go see Julian Sayin and kick the tires on that to potentially flip him from Alabama before he went to see Aaron Nolan. I did an episode, Nolan versus Sayin, and in that episode I went on a deep dive with these two dudes, and I came away thinking exactly what these guys are saying now. Watch that episode. I'll link it at the end if you haven't seen it, or if you're interested, or maybe I'll just play a clip right now.
As I watch Aaron Nolan's film, I see an awesome player. He's very, very, very good. And you look at him and you think, hey, I never like to jump to conclusions watching high school footage. But those stats his junior year, playing at the competition, the comments about being so clutch, he certainly seems like a guy who's going to be a very good college quarterback. But when I watch Julian Sayin, I see something special. It just looks different. It looks different to me. I think this dude's going to be amazing. I think he's going to be amazing. I think he's not only going to win the job, but I think he's going to start as a sophomore, second-year guy. And but Julian Sayin has been groomed for this his entire life, for this moment right here. And this guy is showing Ryan Day and Chip Kelly something I don't think they've ever seen from a freshman in their lives, and I've certainly never heard from a freshman at Ohio State coming out of spring camp. The kid is something special,
And what we're hearing now is what special players do. It's starting to sound like, to a smaller degree, what we're hearing out of Jeremiah Smith. Like, freshmen don't do this as receivers. Guys, freshmen don't do this as quarterbacks. We don't hear about freshmen doing anything at spring camp. Like, this is not, it's the first scrimmage. And the highlights coming out of it aren't about the starting quarterback competition. We're hearing about the freshman quarterback, and not even the one that everybody wanted to be the successful one, the other one. It's amazing. And I don't think it's long before this kid's going to see the field at Ohio State. And before we start hearing people talk about Julian Sayin in a similar way that we hear, people talk about Jeremiah Smith. I don't think that it's going to be long. When you watch this kid's film and you watch his highlights from high school, you come away thinking, this kid's something special. He looks like a wizard out there. How did he do that? How did he put the ball there? How did he throw off that platform? It just looks incredibly different. I think when I did my I was just kind of like in awe. Like, everything he does just looks different in a good way. And it's absolutely no knock on Air, who's incredibly good. But it's almost not even fair for Air, because Julian Sayin was breaking down film when he was in like 7th grade on whiteboards. In his spare time, he would sit and study Bryce Young's film. So when you get a jump like that, it's not really a fair competition. But when you add to it that he's also had a dedicated quarterback coach since he was, pre-high school. When he was in high school, he kept an iPad with the opposing defensive coordinators, all their stuff that they ran. As a freshman in high school, he was logging that from the other teams in his conference in high school. I mean, we're just talking about a guy who has basically been a quarterback savant since he was a very young kid. And when you mix that kind of brain with also, the real interest into doing that, I mean, you get yourself a really dangerous one. And this kid has just done it all. He's prepared so incredibly much for this moment, and it's showing, and we're hearing it, and it's amazing. And I think he's going to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State in his second year. And I think that we are all going to love him, because I think he just might have a chance to be the best quarterback we've ever had at Ohio State. And that's just crazy. It's just crazy. I know it sounds crazy saying it, but it's something different. And before you get mad at me, because I know some of you are gonna, I like Aaron Noland, but these are not the same caliber of player. They're just not. And please go watch Julian Sayin in high school. Just watch it first before you get irritated with that statement. Just watch it. If you watch it and you don't feel the same way, we can talk about it. But before you watch it, don't get mad at me. They're not the same caliber of player. It's totally different. And it's not a knock on Noland. He's excellent. But Sayin is special, the type of guy you do not see but once every 5 years. That's how I feel about it. Hey, it's Juck, and MyBookie has some free cash for the Juck on Bucks audience. Open up an account today at MyBookie, and we're going to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000 in free bets with the promo code JUCK. If you're new to sportsbooks, this is a good one to start at. And if you're an old vet, they got everything we want. It's very simple to use. You can pull out your winnings instantly, and they have an extensive selection of wagering options, including straight bets, parlay bets across sports, odds boosts, and even free plays pop up every now and again. If you like props, they got a whole slew of those, and these guys even got a casino over at MyBookie. And to let us try that out, they got a $10 casino chip with our promo code JUCK. I like to bet some basketball during the tournament for a little bit of fun. I go a little heavier during football season, but no matter what your sport or your favorite wagering option is, you can find it at MyBookie. So open up your account today at MyBookie with the promo code JUCK, because betting is fun, but betting with somebody else's money is even more fun. Check them out. Vero Beach, Florida linebacker TJ Alford, friend of Juck on Bucks, discussed his official visit at Ohio State that he had over the weekend. He absolutely loved it. He got to meet CJ Stroud. He got to meet Marv. He got to meet Jim Tressel. At practice, he paid really close attention to CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles. And he's going to announce next week where he's going to go to school. Now, after that announcement, he has visits scheduled to Florida State, UCF, and Miami. And this is a recent trend we've seen. We're seeing it now with DeCorian Moore, who announced that he was committing to LSU a long time ago. He's continued to take official visits. He was in Columbus. And he's going to talk to Texas, and he's going to talk to Oregon, and he's going to keep talking to them. And there's some feeling that LSU is not where he's going to end up, and I agree. But this trend we're seeing more and more of with these guys coming out and committing and still taking visits. And TJ Alford's going to be doing the same thing. And I really think when it comes down to TJ, that March 30th, TJ is going to announce, and I'd be stunned if he didn't say Ohio State. And I know that everybody on that list that he's going to go to continue to visit after he makes that announcement is going to pursue him hard. And I know there's some family pressure to stay close to home down in Florida. But I would just be stunned if he does not end up at Ohio State, because this kid just when he talks about Ohio State, I've listened to him talk about all these schools. It's just different. The way it comes out of his mouth is different. He has a certain reverence, and he just sounds giddy when he talks about Ohio State. It's where he wants to be, and I'm not really worried about it at all. But the Buckeyes think they found a real diamond in the rough in St. Ignatius athlete Cody Haddad, a guy that's been kind of overlooked by the scouting services, much like Hoban linebacker Eli Lee, and to a lesser extent, wide receiver Javon Boggs, Brian Hartline's first wide receiver that he signed in the class of 2025. From Cocoa, Florida, who was Florida Mr. Football, but somehow only a 3-star when Hartline got on him. But Cody Haddad is listed as an athlete. He's played all over the place. He's projected as a safety in college at almost 6'1", 175, 180. And the Haddad family is a family that's had quite a few boys over the generations be standouts at St. Ignatius. I remember a beast running back that played for them in '94. His dad played at Buffalo and then had a cup of coffee in the NFL. The kid's got good genes. He's the 526th ranked player in the country, so not a typical Ohio State pedigree when it comes to the rankings. And I absolutely love it when the Buckeyes find a guy in state that they fall in love with. And it certainly seems like Cody Haddad is another one of those guys, just like Eli Lee this year. So the Bucs get in on Haddad late, offer him in January. He's already been committed to Fickle in Wisconsin. His lead recruiter at Wisconsin is Dick Tressel's son, Mike Tressel, who's the defensive coordinator for the Badgers. And Cody made his first visit to Columbus Tuesday for practice, and then he came back over the weekend. So it seems like he's going to be wanting to commit to Ohio State pretty soon to me. But we're talking about safety in the 2025 class, and the number one safety in the country, Trey McNutt out of Shaker Heights, has been projected as an Ohio State commit. And the number two safety in the country, Fahim Delane, is also kind of projected as a Buckeye lean as well. But then we're talking about Dorian Brew, who's a cornerback, the number 4 rated cornerback in the country. And a lot of people think that he's going to end up as a safety because he's just big and he's getting bigger. So, where does that leave these guys? Do the first 3 that commit get taken and the last guy is just kind of left out? I don't know. But it doesn't seem like any of those other guys are in a hurry to make a decision. And to be honest, as much as people think Trey McNutt is a Buckeye lean, I don't. And I don't think he's going to end up at Ohio State, to be quite honest with you. I really don't. It's just a feeling and a vibe I've always got, and I just don't feel like – I feel like he's going to end up at Oregon. I really do. But, listen, I don't love talking about the 2026 class because so much can change from now to then. But Sam Greer was in attendance in Columbus, and this kid is from Hoban, right? He's 6'8", 290, a top 100 player, a tackle, and he's an absolute monster. Michigan is after him hard, and we cannot let this kid go. Can't let him get out of state. He's an absolute monster. He's awesome. He's a basketball player, and he's just so smooth. He moves smooth out there on the field. He's just, for a dude that size, I mean, I think he's vastly underrated, just, breaking the top 100. And I think he's going to shoot up the rankings. But he's the real deal. And, he's muscular. He's only 290, but he's muscular. So he's not a chubby kid. He's built well. And he's a must-get out of Hoban in the class of 2026, which would be 2 kids that we really need out of Hoban in the class of 2026, with Rock Hill, top 10 overall cornerback, and Sam Greer, who I think is going to continue to rise up the rankings and, might be competing for one of the top 2 or 3 left tackle rankings in that class. So the Lady Buck basketball team got knocked out of the tournament by Duke, and I was really rooting hard for them, though I wasn't watching. I root for Ohio State at everything, particularly when we got a team that's in position to maybe win a championship. So that stinks. But something happened today that was kind of note. A Notre Dame troll called out a bunch of Ohio State media outlets, and he was knocking the Lady Buckeyes and making fun of them for losing to Duke. And in that tweet, he tagged 11 Warriors and Bucknuts and Buckeye Huddle and Juck on Bucks. How about that, guys? Our little show got included in the Buckeye Troll post. I was flattered. I was so flattered I showed it to my son, who pointed out to me that the guy who made that post is a Notre Dame football fan, and in his bio, he's also a Cowboys fan, and he's a Duke basketball fan, so the absolute worst kind of fan. He probably loves the Yankees and the Lakers as well. But hey, he made my day nonetheless. And that same son of mine also sent me a story that's been floating around the internet and picking up some decent steam about a half-eaten human body found in Detroit Ford Field's water system. Of course, that's a nonsense story. So I went on just to confirm that that is a nonsense story. And it is. But the crazy part is it was reported by BSO, which is a sports site run by Robert Little, who is an Ohio State grad. And I think that that story is a direct troll job by a Buckeye grad to the city of Detroit, Michigan. I really do. And, of course, a lot of people are going to believe it. And we're talking about contaminated water in the state of Michigan and a half-eaten dead body in Detroit. So he gave just enough detail to get a lot of people to believe it because it kind of fits. Hey, the rivalry lives on in the weirdest of ways sometimes. Kudos to you, Mr. Little. Ohio State wrestler Jesse Mendez is the national championship at 141 pounds as he defeated a Penn Stater named Bo something or other with a thrilling takedown in the final seconds. Penn State appealed the takedown of Bo something or other, but the ruling stood, and Jesse won 4-1, giving the Bucks their first national championship since legendary Kyle Snyder won in 2018. Congratulations, Jesse Mendez, a national champ Buckeye. That's awesome. Lincoln Riley and the Trojans are headed into the Big Ten in 2024. They got rid of Alex Grinch on defense, finally, and a lot of people think it's not going to matter. Lincoln can't coach defense. He doesn't care about defense. He runs his practice in a way that's not conducive to developing a defense. He doesn't care about the defensive coaches. And there's 7 years of data now to kind of support that theory. But after Lincoln fired Alex Grinch, he went out and grabbed the UCLA defensive coordinator who had just taken UCLA from garbage to top 15 in the country on defense. And then he got North Dakota State's head coach, Matt Entz, to leave North Dakota State and be his linebacker coach. And then he got the Rams defensive line coach to come down and join USC as their defensive line coach. And it turns out Eric Henderson, the Rams defensive line coach, the guy who just got done coaching Aaron Donald and who's from New Orleans, is pretty appealing to big, nasty defensive linemen in the South because that dude just landed 2 absolute studs on the defensive line from Georgia. Justice Terry, a 5-star top 10 overall commit from Georgia, was committed to Georgia and flipped to Lincoln and the Trojans. And then they got Isaiah Gibson, who 247 has as their number 1 edge rusher in the country. And these are 2 absolute studs to pair with their other 5-star in the class, Julian Lewis, the 5-star quarterback. Look, we expected that they would get some kind of recruiting bump out of moving to the Big Ten. We haven't seen it until just now. And what's happening with this staff in USC, it's been very quiet. I've not heard a lot of noise about it, but there's noise coming. all the noise has been on Oregon, and rightfully so. They're definitely in a much better spot right now than USC is. But this looks like a very competent defensive staff, and we know Lincoln can coach offense. They got a pretty tough schedule next year. I'll put it up. They start off with LSU at a neutral site. Game 4, they're at Michigan. Then they got Wisconsin, Penn State, Notre Dame, all at home. There's an opportunity to score a lot of big victories there and a whole lot of tests for that new defense in year 1. And I think that experience is going to be invaluable. And they've got some talent on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen good defensive coordinators come in and take a group of talented guys who played horrible the year before and make them competent in year 1. They got a very talented young quarterback, a couple of really nice wide receivers. Serious momentum starter right there. Serious momentum going in USC's favor here. And it's a little bit concerning, to be honest. We know they can get skill players in California, and if they can continue to get some bigs out of the Deep South, which they're showing right now that they can, things might just be looking up big time out there at USC. I'd say that's not great news. But the more players right now that they take away from Georgia in the present, because USC's not ready to compete just yet and Georgia is, I guess the better for now. But we've seen what USC can look like at max capacity when they're running, when they're humming. And, you know, I don't think that we saw Texas forever struggle and boom, now they're back. I definitely feel like USC can come back and be that kind of program again. They're definitely capable of it. And Lincoln might just be on to the proper staff to make that happen. So they were pretty much considered by everybody to be maybe like if you were doing tiers in the Big Ten, like a tier 3 team coming into the Big Ten. I don't think that's going to last long. I think that they're going to score some really big wins this year, and we're going to go into the following year with USC being, okay, they're a legit contender already because this defensive staff looks solid. And finally today, college football's favorite team mom, Deion Sanders, came out and said that there are teams he is not going to allow Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders play for in the NFL. And I'm telling you, if I was a GM, there is absolutely zero chance I would touch either of these dudes with a 10-foot pole because I am not dealing with this crap from this guy. He's far too influential on those two. And, holdouts, trade demands, no chance. He's already coming out and publicly saying this. He's just putting it out there. I mean, this guy's just oblivious to the way the rest of the world works. He's living in his own world. And I'm telling you, ruining your star quarterback's decision-making, whether he's going to hold out, whether he's going to demand a trade, like, no way. I'm not taking that chance. And I think he's probably going to cost those two some spots because I would imagine that there's a whole lot of GMs that do not want the Deion show coming to their program, to their franchise. They got egos too. And I just don't see anybody wanting to waste a high pick on the potential of dealing with this type of crap. Already talking about holdouts or whatever he's going to try to orchestrate to make sure that they don't go where he doesn't want them to go. I mean, just oblivious. And there I go again talking about the dude. Anyway, hey, it's Monday, whatevs. So that's my show. Thank you for joining me. And you can find this show in podcast form anywhere you find podcasts. And I appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Chuck and Bucks out.